Dear students, hope you are all fine. Today I am sharing another video lecture with you. This is lecture number 20, and in this lecture I will talk about different types of writing skills. Dear students, in this lecture I will talk about narrative writing. I will also discuss argumentative and persuasive writing. I will also discuss expository writing. I will talk about descriptive writing. I will also discuss purpose of writing. I will also talk about nature of writing. At the end of this lecture, you will be able to know about different types of writing. You will also know about importance, purpose of writing. You will also know about nature of writing. First of all, I will talk about writing, that what is writing. Writing is the act or process of producing and recording words in a form that can be read and understood. Now I will talk about another type of writing, that is narrative writing or narration. The boundary line between narration and description is a thin one. It is said that we narrate an event and describe an object. But generally, it will be found that in a long piece of narrative, descriptive plays a prominent part. In narration, we deal with particular things and represent these things as moving from one point in time to another point in time. Suppose I am relating a ghost story. At first, I shall give those incidents that took place before the ghost appeared, then the things that happened when the ghost appeared, and lastly, I shall deal with the incidents after the departure of the ghost. In this way, we move from point to point in time in narrative. In description, we move from point to point in space. When a man describes a building, he describes the four sides of it, and then describes the inside, room by room, and he moves about in space. So now I will tell you about classification of narratives. Narratives are usually classified as narratives of fact and narratives of fiction. First, what is narratives of fact? We may subdivide them into history, biography, autography. So what is history? History which narrates events as they actually happened in the life of a nation or people. In biography, what we do that we narrate the story of man's life. And autobiography, what we do that in which the man himself narrates his life story. So history, that is narrative writing, biography, that is narrative writing, and autobiography, that is also narrative writing. So this is how what we do, that in history, biography, and autobiography, whenever we share ideas, so that is narratives of fact. Now I will talk about narratives of fiction. These deals with imaginary events, not with actual facts. These may be subdivided into realistic fiction, romantic fiction, idealistic fiction, and short stories. Now, what is realistic fiction? Realistic fiction dealing with events which are typical of man's life. Romantic fiction dealing with attractive events, adventures, etc., which seldom take place in real life but which satisfy a demand of a human heart. Idealistic fiction is something which seeks to apply some noble ideas to life and sets up ideal characters or types. And then short stories, which may be realistic, idealistic, or romantic, etc. So we divide narratives of fiction into these four types, in which some facts are realistic, some facts are romantic, some facts are idealistic, and some facts we explain in short stories. Now I will talk about different types of narratives. There are some common types of narratives. The first is allegory. An allegory is often given in the form of a short story. An allegory is a story, poem, and fiction in which the events and characters represent ideas. The object is to teach a moral lesson. So what allegory is all about? Allegory is all about to teach the moral lesson. So whenever you want to share, whenever you want to convey a moral theme, so that kind of writing is called allegory, and that is also that is also the part of narrative writing. The second is fable. A fable is a short fictitious story with a moral. Irrational animals are generally introduced into fables. A fable need not to be allegorical. And the third is parable. A parable is allegorical story intended to enforce some high moral or religious lesson. Parable is derived from two words, para, which means beside, and belto, which means throw. It is so called because the story and its meaning lie side by side in a parable. Like Jesus Christ was fond of preaching in parables. Now, what are qualities of good narrative? A good short story should have these qualities. An artistic short story should have a special quality, a very curious, haunting, and suggestive quality. It is provocative of imagination, it haunts the memory. It does not introduce too many characters, nor does it saddle itself with a complicated plot which requires to be developed through many incidents. Its dialogue, which is written with art, is a brief and excellent form of character delineation. A good short story is a drama in narrative form. It has a close, rote plot. Its incidents constitute a progression, but they are also an interacting body. It is never too long to be completed in one observed reading. So these are different qualities of good narrative. Then these qualities, if these qualities are present, so we can say that that is good narrative. Now I will talk about the techniques of narrative writing. As we all know that storytelling is a delectable art, we are all children when it comes to listening to a good story. But how to make up a good story out of unattractive materials of human experience? This is a big question. So there are several important techniques of narrative writing. Some of them are, the first one is plot. The first great thing that should be kept in mind is the necessity of plot. Without a clear and coherent plot, a narrative will be a jumble of unrelated events. The general course of movement from one point to another in a narrative is called plot. If there is a plot, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, a satisfying end at that. So whenever you go for narrative writing, this thing is important that you need to create a very good plot which has proper beginning, proper middle, proper end. The second technique of narrative writing is movement. In a narrative, movement is the essential thing. The story should move from point to point and should keep the interest of reader alive. So when there is movement in the story, when characters are lively, so it creates interest of the reader. So this was all about the techniques of narrative writing. So now I will talk about argumentative and persuasive writing. Argumentative and persuasive writing method of writing is used when we want to persuade a person to our point of view, as persuasion means to make someone agree. Its main object is to convince others. It contains the opinion and suggestions of the writer. The writer explains his point of view in a systematic and logical point of view. There is a reason and justification in his writing. The method of writing is often applied in the business world. The advertisements of a commercial product are put before the people in a convincing manner. The reader of the advertisement is attracted to buy that thing. The persuasive method of writing is used in letters of complaint, newspaper, opinion, and editorial presses. We find this type of writing in textbooks, how to know in articles related how to know and act, recipes, news and press releases, business, professional, and scientific writings. So argumentative and persuasive writings are also very important, and these are the writings which are used to convince and to persuade people, especially readers. The last but not the least kind of writing, the fourth type of writing is expository writing. Expository writing is great form of communication. Its main object is to explain or inform. The writer is not supposed to suggest or give his opinion in this form of writing. It is a subject-oriented writing style in which the writer explains the subject only. He does not give his own opinion about it. Essays or articles written in magazines form this type of writing. The essays and articles give us facts and figures of a topic in the calculated manner. They do not suggest anything. Such a type of writing is found in the textbook known as articles or acts. In this method, the writer keeps the following things in view. It explains a thing in a systematic and orderly manner. It is a systematic kind of writing. It is packed with facts and figures. Everything is described in a calculated manner. It observes logical order and development. It is logical, orderly, and systematic. The facts are explained truthfully. The reader is attracted by the truthfulness of the facts. The writer takes a stand He wants to convince you about the correctness of that stand. He wants to carry you away from his to his point of view. It means that he should explain his point of view truthfully and sincerely. The writer urges the reader to plunge into action and do something practically to prove his point of view. What the writer describes is fully related to common sense view and knowledge. This type of writing is bound in advertisements, newspaper columns, editorials, review of books and movies, letters of recommendation, and cover letters. So all those writings in which writer uses his facts and figures in order to impress upon, in order to convince, that is called expository writing. Dear students, now I will talk about descriptive writing. In descriptive writing, we describe a thing, place, or an event. In descriptive writing, first comes the process of description. This is a handy enough definition, but the process is so simple that one need not to start with a definition. We are constantly describing things. Even the baby in its inarticulate speech tries to describe the objects around the court. The second is art of description. But there is a process of description and there is, as distinguished from it, the art of description. The process is common enough, but the art, as a deliberate effort for producing some desired effect, is not so commonplace. When we describe ordinarily, we describe casually, in a haphazard manner. The art of description has to be learned. The third is methods of description. There are two methods of description. We may call them enumerative and suggestive. In the former case, we describe detail by detail, fully and in orderly manner, including everything that is relevant. In the latter case, we try to suggest images and pictures by means of epithets charged with associations. The suggestive method of description appears in single words, longer phrases, also in entire passages. It is, however, more suited to poetry than to prose. Now I will talk about techniques of description. We may describe a thing by the following methods. The first is observation and collection of material. If there is an object before you, observe all its features carefully. In other cases, try to imagine what the object looks like and hold it before your mind's eye, so to say, in clear and vivid outline. Unless you develop the faculty of observation, you will not be able to collect sufficient material for your description. We miss many interesting features of those objects which we see every day because we do not see them carefully. All great descriptive writers had the seeing eye. The second is selection. The power of observation, if carefully cultivated, enables the student to gather his material, but he cannot describe everything that he sees or imagines. He has to choose the more salient features, otherwise his description will be too long and flat. Selection is more artistic process, vivid and significant details are to be chosen. The third is arrangement. After gathering the details, we should arrange it in proper order. The simplest method may be, as a writer says, to go from position to position, from head to foot, or from foot to head, from west to east, and from east to west. The last but not the least is the language. Some care should be taken about the language of description. The words used should be vivid, not vague and colorless. There is something called word painting. It is nothing but vivid description. Precision in the use of words is needed in order to make the description accurate and clear. Dear students, now I will talk about qualities of good description. A good description must have these qualities. The first is fullness. A good description is full of description. A description which leaves out important features of an object cannot be praised. However attractive it may be, even when one is asked to write a brief description, one can make it a full one by describing all the important features and leaving out unimportant ones. The second quality is vividness. A good description must be a vivid one. It must be attractive, graphic, and colorful. The third quality is arrangement. A good description is not just a heap of unsorted details, but an orderly whole. Without arrangement, there can be no good description. Arrangement is essential for every type of description. The fourth one is purity. We should not mix up a narrative or dramatic motives with description. nor should we introduce ideas which have no bearing on the object described. Feelings, as we have already said, are not always out of the place in description. Now I will talk about nature of writing. Apparently, writing appears to be a dull or difficult thing. Unlike speaking or listening, it is not an innate or natural skill. Speaking or listening is an inborn skill. Writing, on the contrary, is a skill that is not inborn. We need to learn it consciously. As a mode of communication, writing has yet another interesting facet. We start communicating through writing at a later stage of our intellectual development. Unlike speaking or listening, it is a more complex tool of communication. The coordination of mental processes and physical organs involved in this skill is more elaborate than listening or speaking. Unlike speaking, as a tool of communication, writing is not temporary. The written mode of communication, on the contrary, is everlasting. It is permanently available across the barriers of time and space. So we must have to be more specific about the sub-skills that are listed below. The writer should present ideas logically and coherently through organization and structuring of ideas. He should connect ideas in a cohesive manner. He should write effectively to perform the various functions which writing claims to have. So these are important things about writing, that whenever you write, you need to be careful about sub skills which I've already discussed. Now I will talk about the importance and purpose of writing, or advantages of writing. Writing as a tool of communication serves the following purpose. First, writing as a tool of information. Writing is a great means of information. Informative writing is based on facts and figures. The object of the writer is to supply information about any topic to the reader. He does not persuade the reader while giving information through writing. He does not use rhetoric style. He is calculated, systematic, and organized in his writing. He is also unbiased. The second importance is writing as a tool of persuasion. In this type of writing, the writer persuades and convinces the reader to his point of view. He expresses his ideas in a logical manner. He has to convince the reader about a point of view which the reader may not like. That is why he has to remain rational and logical in his writing. He should remain on the path of common sense. The third is wide access. Written communication enjoys a wide access. It is by means of written literature that a writer and a reader living in different cities and countries are connected with each other. Written skills across the border of culture, race, and language. They connect people by means of book, emails, notices, circulars, etc. The fourth importance is permanent record a thing. Written communication is a permanent record of a thing, fact, story, or anecdote. It can be consulted in future at any time. It does not betray or mislead anyone. It can be used for future reference. It maintains the record of any firm or organization. The fifth importance is used as a legal evidence. A written message is used as a legal evidence. It is acceptable as a legal document. That is why some executives think that even if some messages have been transmitted orally, they should later be confirmed in writing. The sixth importance of writing is effective in decision making. All documents help in effective decision making in a great way. The decision making process becomes easier if all records are available. The written messages provide necessary information for decision making purpose. So these were different important points which reflects the importance of writing. Dear students, this was all about different types of writing and also about purpose and importance of writing. I hope you have got the concept.